In this design, you'll want to pick an Oasis foam igloo that fits your lantern. Oasis is the name brand term from the foam cage that we're using here. From my experience, you always think you'll need more flowers than you actually do to make the design feel full. This design is also more compact than you'll anticipate. I recommend placing the foam in the lantern periodically to make sure that it fits. Start with small pieces of greenery to cover the plastic cage. Here I've used Salal. Place a few stems in the center of the wet foam cage. I do this so that I won't wind up using more flowers to cover it up. It also helps direct the placement of flowers as we get further into the design. You want to place a few key pieces around the base of the igloo just so people won't see it through the lantern. Continue placing the Salal around the foam and don't forget to test it out in the lantern before you move on to flowers. Now it's time to place our flowers. I place a single rose first at the base of the igloo, again to cover it up. Then I continue on with some peach spray roses. If they have any bruised or guard petals, pluck them off before placing the stems in the foam. With this design, spray roses go a long way as you can break them into multiple blooms, which is really great for spreading them around the igloo. You'll see here that I pick up the igloo quite often as I'm designing. It helps with placement. I've also staggered the spray roses, as I encourage you to do in all designs, so that they aren't on the same plane, which helps create depth and dimension. Next, I place another rose almost dead center in the igloo. I do this so there is a focal point in the design. Also, once you get this placement right, placing the rest of the flowers may feel easier as you know to keep them shorter than this one. You'll see here that placing the arrangement in the lantern periodically as you add flowers is so helpful as you find areas that you need to adjust. Here, I've trimmed back some of the Salal as I don't want it to be my main focal point. Also, you may find that you need to adjust the flowers so that they're not smushed up against the lantern glass. Remember earlier when I said this design would be more compact than you anticipated? Well, this is why. We're used to designing with no constraints on the flowers, but here the lantern only lets them go so far. Just do a quick adjustment or stem placement change and you'll be good to go. Next, I move on to some mini carnations. They are great in these arrangements for the same reasons as our spray roses. They have multiple blooms per stem and you can break them down and use them across the design. They're also incredibly hardy flowers and do really well in floral foam. Remember to turn your arrangement periodically so you can be sure to address all sides of the design. In doing so, we've noticed some foam that needs to be covered up. We've used some Italian Ruscus here to add a deeper color of greenery and for a different texture. Now we're moving on to an accent flower called Tweedia. We're using it as a filler flower too because of its multiple tiny blooms. Like the sprays and the mini carnations, I'm breaking down this stem so that we have multiple smaller stems to use across the design. In turning the arrangement, we found that there is a big exposed area of foam. To cover it up, I'm using a beautiful filler flower called rice flower. I'll continue to use some of the sprays of the rice flower to fill in holes around the arrangement periodically as we go on. Quick reminder to always make sure that the stems are clean of any small leaves and have a fresh cut before going into the foam. Doubling up on stems can help you fill in an area faster. I have taken 2 short stems of Italian Ruscus and treated them as one to fill in more of the space of the floral foam. We still have some filling in to do, so I'm going to take a few stems of a white spray rose to add to the design. Next, I take my greenery and I add in more details. Here I've used Gunni Eucalyptus because I love the texture. Now that we have everything placed, give it a once over and place it in the lantern to make sure everything fits well and it isn't smashed. Once you place the arrangement in the lantern, you can add any additional greenery you want draping out of the lantern from the floral igloo. Depending on the size of your lantern or container, you can go as light or as heavy on this as you want. Well, that's it for our tutorial on how to make a lantern arrangement. I am Allison with Bloom Culture Flowers, and thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below, or you can always email us at hello@bloomcultureflowers.com. Thanks so much.